There are some people that really seem to love Jared Leto's Joker and believe that he encapsulated everything that makes the character menacing and amusing and frightening and unhinged, whilst for a lot of others, it seemed like total crap and a wasted opportunity. So what's happening here today is kind of a follow-up video to what I did after this Joker was first revealed, where I was all, hey, let's just wait until Suicide Squad comes out to pass judgment. And well, it did come out, and people are passing all of the judgment. Just shoveling on so much judgment. So let's get into this new version, as well as what makes a compelling Joker in general. And if you stick around to the end, I'll announce my weekly Loot Crate box giveaway from last week, plus there'll be another chance to enter for a new box that I'll draw next week. It's gonna be a wild ride, and by that I mean just like a regular video, like I always do, and whatever, kind of goes on in one of those. Okay, straight up, I don't think that Jared Leto's Joker is a particularly good representation of the character, but I don't think it's because he did a bad job. In fact, he seemed to put a lot of effort into crafting the look and persona to the point where that's all we really heard about during the making of the film. Things like, oh hey, did you hear that Jared Leto has fully immersed himself into the role? Did you also hear that Jared Leto is sending his castmates bullets and rats and condoms? And did you hear how Jared Leto's not doing the normal thing that actors do, where they just turn up on the day and they say their lines and then they break for a bit and all the cast and crew have their lunch and they just sit around and chat about their lives and stuff, and then they all go back to their retrospective jobs before calling it a day. Yeah, no, he didn't do any of that. He was crazy. He was crazy. I think it was these stories that really ended up hurting the final product. So much so that people are greatly amused for what ended up being not much of anything. But again, I don't think this is down to his involvement, and his anger at being mostly removed seems to be because he was misled by the studio from the very get-go.
My answer is, fuck him.
Because it's clear at this point that how he was pitched the role and how it turned out were wildly different. It's been stipulated that he felt he was tricked into the part, and then he thought it was going to be more artistic than what it ended up as, that being 7 or 8 minutes of screen time. I mean, you can see it in the interviews. This is him talking about the role before it was released.
Disappearing, going into that rabbit hole was something I never expected. I never thought in a million years that I would have the chance to play a role like this.
Look at the sparkle in his eyes. He's just all awe and wonder. And this is him after.
It's a bit of an introduction to the Joker now. It's a bit more of a supporting part than maybe it could have been if they used everything. I think if people respond to this Joker and if they have a good time with this version of the Joker, then I could imagine him coming back. But if not, I'll just go live in a fucking cave somewhere.
This to me is baffling. If you hang a huge chunk of the marketing campaign on the character and you've hired a guy like Jared Leto who goes above and beyond in all his roles, you'd think that you'd want to utilize him. This is a guy who's taken a grand total of 2 films since 2010. He doesn't just grab anything. He takes this shit ridiculously seriously. I mean, look at all the changes he's made to himself over the years. I hate going for a haircut, and this guy's taken off and stacking on weight like some kind of weight stacking machine at a gym. That's a thing, right? Probably works your lats. You get that V, And I think Warner Brothers' idea from the start was try to replicate the success of The Dark Knight by adding a character that has proven popularity. Because there's not really a version of the Joker that people dislike universally. Of course, there's varying degrees of popularity and everyone has their favorite. But by and large, fans aren't unified in going, I hate that particular version. His version though, whilst not outright hated, it's probably the closest to that we've seen. And I think that's because there was no clarity in terms of what the studio wanted to do with him. Everybody seemed massively concerned with the mythos behind him and crafting the new look and delving into what makes him tick. But what didn't really seem to be considered was what scenes he was going to be in, and I guess more importantly, what would happen in those scenes. I talked about this in last week's video, but David Ayer had something like 6 weeks in total to craft the story, and from my understanding, the Joker was initially to appear in a series of flashbacks, some of which we saw, most we didn't, and then an attempt to rescue Harley Quinn, where he then gets shot down, which, we kind of saw, and then he's supposed to reappear, and then fail at another attempt to grab Harley, but that didn't happen, and then of course he shows up at the end to rescue Harley in a SWAT uniform, which we did get. And the thing is, what we ended up with, I don't think that was entirely fleshed out and strong enough to constitute putting all those scenes in. And if all the extra stuff stuff, which was cut out, was considered strong and relevant enough to put in, then you'd think that would have made the cut. I mean, there was time. This movie runs for 2 hours and 10 minutes. Whilst Batman v Superman had 21 minutes on top of that. Somebody thought that the extra Joker moments weren't good enough or cohesive enough or whatever to include in the film. And looking at what we did get, maybe the right call was to just not have any of it. Because you can actually remove all of the Joker's stuff and the movie still works as is. He could still be referenced in name only and have the same amount of impact. And to prove that, let's look at a few of his scenes. How about this one where the Joker and Harley are in the club? I'm not sure exactly why. What is this? He chats for a bit to Monster T, offers up Harley as some kind of reward for the deal that they've made, and then Monster T politely refuses, and then he kills him. To what end? They just made a business deal. Shouldn't that have gone, Monster T moves in on Harley, and then the Joker kills him out of jealousy or love or something? And how about the moment of Harley Quinn's birth? Maybe it's just me, but I interpret it as she jumps into the chemicals, he waits for a moment, and then goes in after her because she's drowning. But according to the novelization, that's not how it goes down at all. And I'll show you what I mean. Now, I wish I had a better audiobook voice. There's a reason why they don't use Australians for these, but you know. Bear with me. He took a step back and gestured towards the edge of the vat. Without hesitating, she stepped off the platform and plunged into the churning liquid below. Impressed, he watched her disappear into the hellish brew. She was gone. Forever, he thought. Problem solved. Bloody blah, he has a bunch of second thoughts. See, this is why they don't use Australians for audiobooks. He turned back and stared into the vat, but he still wasn't seeing her bobbing to the surface, choking on the chemicals, then floating face down in the gunk and dying, which was the plan he had for her. Without another thought, he jumped off the edge of the platform and dove into the churning mass below. Maybe everybody else caught that, but I know I didn't, and to me that's representative of all of his scenes. They just feel like half-finished thoughts and ideas with these like erratic and confusing edits. Like in this scene. I haven't cut it this way. This is how this moment appears in the final film. I mean, I guess it's supposed to symbolize a descent into madness or whatever, but I feel like the animated origin managed to convey that much more subtly, and that's just two people sitting in a room talking.
You know, my father used to beat me up pretty badly.
So let's talk about some other versions. Now, I know everyone's probably sick of hearing about Heath Ledger's Joker, about how it's one of the greatest performances of all time, and so forth, but give me a minute. That interpretation wouldn't work in a worse film. And by that I mean, it wouldn't have worked in this film. Yes, he's a fully realized version of the character that Heath Ledger, like Jared Leto, undoubtedly put a lot of work into. But give him a handful of loosely connected scenes that amounts to a subplot that heads in the direction of town fuck and all, and the whole thing falls apart. But he works in a Nolan film because they operate like a kind of intricate timepiece. Every component is vital and drives the narrative forward. If you've seen The Dark Knight, and you have, every moment with the Joker has a purpose. The mob table scene. This demonstrates a number of things, including his close combat skills, as well as total fearlessness in the face of extreme danger. The scene where he burns his half of the money. That clarifies that he's not doing any of this for financial reasons. Because like I said, every minute with him, it tells you something about the character or the narrative. Even this moment, it's a small thing, but right here, that lets the audience know that like Bruce Wayne, he doesn't drink. Or at the very least, he's not drinking at this moment because he's not a total idiot. Why would he dull his senses in such a pivotal and highly volatile situation? And this purpose, the same goes for every other well thought out version of the character, no matter what the era. The Mark Hamill animated series incarnation acts insane, and he is, but he's also extremely methodical. His crimes are well realized, thought out capers, designed in such a way that they have to meet his very high standard and specific form of joke talent. Jack Nicholson's Joker was weird and Burton-esque, but I get it. He's a mob boss driven mad, and he wants to just continue his climb to the top. Though, you know, I'm not sure what this scene is about, but I tell you this much, I bloody love it.
Then he had us.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Even Cesar Romero's version. He's not a murderer, he's just a wacky prankster. Once he turned all the water in Gotham into strawberry jelly. Because he just loves a laugh, this bloke. But walking away from Suicide Squad, I just didn't have a clear idea of what he's supposedly about. I mean, he's after Harley Quinn, I know that, but he was described by Leto himself before the film was released as this force of nature. And I didn't get the sense he was a force of anything. Maybe a force of being a weird dickhead. Because again, it seems like they spent a lot of time nailing down the hair and the tattoos and the teeth and the voice and the laugh. And I don't have a problem with any of that. I thought I might with the tattoos, but in motion, you know, it kind of works, I guess. But it seems like everybody just turned up on the day, shot hours and hours of footage where Jared Leto just pinwheeled in character, which was apparently very captivating to watch, according to the cast and crew, but it was to no particular end. Maybe it would have been better to put more focus on the Joker and Harley Quinn's backstory, because there is absolutely something in that. Or he could have actually interacted with the Suicide Squad, maybe even been the main villain, as opposed to not meeting with a single one of them outside of hanging out the back of a helicopter and firing a gold machine gun. The whole thing just feels like a wasted opportunity, and I'd love in the next movie that he shows up in that we get a better sense of him. Or what they could have done, in hindsight, is let everyone know before Suicide Squad came out that it's not really a Joker story. The Force Awakens didn't promise a damn thing from Luke Skywalker, and like it or not, that's exactly what we got. But like I said, the thing is, it's not a terrible performance. It's decent enough. It might even be great, but because it was never fully realized, or because a whole lot was edited out, or both, we're never really given the opportunity to see that. And I guess that leads me into my question to you guys. Were you happy with this version of the Joker? And how would you like to see him used next? Would you have preferred an entire movie dedicated to the origins of himself and Harley's relationship? Or to find out what happened to the Jason Todd Robin in the form of a flat out Batman Joker story? I don't know, what are your thoughts? If you have any, feel free to leave them below. Because leaving a comment might win you next week's Loot Crate. Here's last week's winner. If you're that person, private message me these details and I'll sort it all out for you. Also, you can turn on notifications as a reminder if you do that, if you're a subscriber or don't. And if you're keen, there's some other videos of mine that might interest you. Or better yet, you could check out my podcast, The Weekly Planet, where this Monday we're talking the most disappointing films of all time. Feel free to come along. It's linked below. It's also got its own YouTube channel. You can just Google it also, or whatever. It's fine, whatever you want. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. Take care.